The entirety of the Christian life is this constant back and forth, this infusion of truth and mercy. And if you ever find yourself or someone else solely talking about truth or solely mercy, then it isn't true Christianity. Now, before I go on, I want to say that this video was kind of inspired by a post that I made the other day, or the comments that someone made on a post I made the other day. And so I just kind of wanted to clarify what was going on in the conversation, what the intention of the post was, and what my position is. So yesterday, it's currently the month of June, and so Pride Month, what have you. Now I was at Mass, and a part of the priest's homily was this teaching of humility and pride, right? Doing God's will, being humble, and allowing God to work through us. And so he talked about pride, not in the context of Pride Month, just as an overall church teaching. Pride is sinful. And so I took something he said in his homily, which had nothing to do with pride, and I said in the quote, in the post, that I'm taking this out of context and I'm putting it in the context of Pride Month as a reminder to Catholics. And so here's what I said. The post was a quote from a local priest, and he said, "God's way is always humility. The devil's way is pride." And my caption, "This was not originally said in the context of Pride Month or anything related to that, but I'm using it in this post in that context as a gentle reminder to Catholics, especially during the month of June. Pride is nothing to be proud of. It's black and white. We can and we do all struggle with pride in general, but we should never advocate being prideful about any area of our lives." Now, someone on Instagram took exception to what I was saying. There's a little bit of a disagreement, maybe a lack of understanding. And so she made a comment on the post. And first I'll say this, I have no problem with that. I actually encourage that. Whenever there's disagreement, that should lead to discussion. Discussion should lead to understanding, and understanding can help us get to a solution. And so not only am I just okay with that, that's on the table, that's game, let's do it. Disagreements, discussions are good. I'm all for it. But here's what they said. She said, "Yes and no. Is pride sinful? Well, sure, we know this. But do heterosexual people have to defend their sexuality or rights to basic human needs? No. Therefore, perhaps you haven't tried empathy and understanding for your LGBTQ brothers and sisters. Perhaps you don't know what it feels like to be discriminated against for simply loving who you love. Perhaps, as a Catholic Christian, you should follow the active Pope who supports loving the LGBTQ community and doesn't waste precious time arguing about rainbows, parades, or pride." Now again, she's entitled to her comments, she's entitled to her position. I'm good with that. That's okay. Disagreement leads to discussion, discussion to understanding, understanding to resolution. So I have no ill comments toward her. I understand where she was coming from. My responses were really to clarify my position. And so to give a little background, and I say this in my post as well, in the comments, I was reluctant for the last 2 weeks to say anything about Pride Month because there are people in my life, people that I have still some connections with, who I maybe at one point in life was close to, who experience same-sex attraction. And what I didn't want to have happen is that they become really hurt by what I said, or their families become hurt by what I said. And so I was really reluctant to say anything. But let me just read the comments, and maybe that'll clarify things. So I said, "I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and it's probably best for me to share more of where I'm coming from. I've genuinely had close relationships with several people who experience same-sex attraction. Every one of these people in my life have been some of the kindest, most generous and caring people I've ever met. This was not a personal attack at all. I contemplated for about 2 weeks whether or not to post anything regarding pride. because I didn't want to hurt those people or their family members whom I also have relations with. Also, as you know, oftentimes on social media, things aren't said in their full context, which leads to miscommunication or at least a lack of understanding. I believe these people who are in my life know me well enough to know that I would never personally attack them or their loved ones. This was specifically a reminder to Catholics, as I wrote in the caption, of the sinful nature of pride in general. It wasn't passing judgment on those who experience same-sex attraction. It was specifically for Catholics who have participated in or are considering participating in some pride event this month. Moreover, this was not said from some ultra-conservative or radical position. It was an expression of what the Church teaches. And while it's harsh to hear or read for some people, I believe it should still be said, because it is the truth. In fact, to address your comment about imitating Pope Francis's approach, I believe that Pope Francis was and is the Pope that the Church needs because of his simplicity of love, which corrects the historic rigidity of previous church leaders. But I believe he has the privilege of approaching matters the way he does because of the Church's history of speaking firmly about truth. So it's easier for him to speak in a more merciful and loving way. There's always this constant back and forth between truth and mercy. And on that note, there are two things I read over the last week and a half to 2 weeks which encouraged me to make the post. The first one is from Mother Angelico. She said, "It's your obligation to speak the truth, and everyone can either take it or leave it. But truth must be in us. We live in such a poverty of truth today." And the second was from, I think he's a French theologian, Father Reginald Guergu-Lagrange. He said, "The Church is intolerant in principle because she believes. But the Church is tolerant in practice because she loves." And so I went on to say, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I hope I was able to clarify my position. Just reiterated that it wasn't a personal attack, but just a statement of truth and a reminder to Catholics. I do believe firmly that we should express our love and our care and our support for everyone, but regarding this matter, particularly those who experience same-sex attraction. Yes, love, support, care, but we cannot, as Catholic Christians, we cannot support or advocate a life of sin. And so there's a distinction there between loving the person and accepting wrong behaviors. And so again, I just wanted to make sure that I clarified my position. There's this constant back and forth between truth and mercy. And I really see truth and mercy as like a Venn diagram. So on one hand, you've got truth, on the other side, you've got mercy. And in the middle, there's this common ground where there's an infusion of the two principles together, truth and mercy. Truth is what's right and wrong, what's good and bad. Mercy is care and love and support, even though you haven't met the things that are right or good or true. And you really, I mean, if you think about it, you really have to have both. It can't just be truth. It can't just be mercy. Truth is a standard. Here's what's good. And if you fall short of that, then it's not quite as good as what is fully good. Truth is a standard. Mercy is understanding and care, even despite not meeting the standard. So mercy doesn't exist without a standard. And so you have to have both. Now, I think that if we are able to live our lives in a way where we have that internal Venn diagram of truth and mercy, this balance back and forth of the two, where we live out our lives speaking the truth but being merciful to others and hoping and praying that people speak truth to us and are merciful with us. Just like I think it's Matthew chapter 6, Jesus tells the disciples, forgive others and God will forgive you. Don't forgive others and God won't forgive you. So we're called to forgive. We're called to be merciful toward others. So we have to have that. But again, there is no such thing as mercy if there is no truth, and truth is a standard. So there's no such thing as mercy if there is no standard. And so there has to be both together, and we should live our lives with both of those guiding us, truth and mercy. Now, if we do that, I think that puts us in the best position to humbly share the truth, beauty, and goodness of the Catholic Christian faith for all to enjoy. I'm Dallas. Have a blessed day.